But the thing is, I'm telling you...
A euphemism is a word to try to paper over a harsh reality with language that would be less evocative and clear. Which is why I'm referring to a human being in the womb, and you're trying to refer to, say, a pregnancy or the product of pregnancy.
Hold on, hold on. I didn't say that the pregnancy or the fetus isn't a human being. It is. But I'm telling you.
Good.
I'm telling you.
But then why won't you call it a human being?
What? I said a pregnancy.
Hey, welcome back to the channel, you beautiful thinkers. Today we've got something special, because there's nothing better than a calm conversation that slowly turns into a full-on intellectual standoff. In this one, a pro-life Catholic named Michael sits down face-to-face with a pro-choice debater named JJ to go round after round on the biggest question in this whole fight. What is actually growing inside the womb, and does it count as one of us? No screaming, no chaos, just two guys in a collision of worldviews that gets way more revealing than either of them expected. And trust me, you do not want to click away early on this one, because the further it goes, the more the language starts slipping, and one admission in the back half completely changes the temperature of the entire debate. Stick with me and you'll catch the exact moment it happens. Before we get into it, drop a comment and let me know where in the world you're watching from. I genuinely love seeing how far this little community stretches. Alright, enough from me, let's break it down together.
But I guess the reason it's important to clear this up is because we have a disagreement here over whether a baby in the womb is morally significant in the way that you and I are morally significant. And we have a disagreement. You say, I think that no, actually what you're saying is it is simply a fact that the baby's not a baby. And I'm saying it is my opinion that the baby is a baby.
Then that's it. No,
so we have a difference of opinion, but at most, one of us is going to be right.
No, my statement of fact was that abortion wasn't murder because
that would presuppose that the baby is not a baby. If the baby is a baby, then abortion would be murder, right? Because you'd be unlawfully killing a person.
Well, no, because again, when you say the word unlawfully, you're talking about your moral. No,
I'm speaking of the objective moral.
Yeah, and the law in the United States is that abortion is not murder. If they overruled it and said, yes, now abortion is murder, then it would be murder. But you can't say abortion is murder because it's unlawfully killing a baby or a person or whatever when it is lawful.
In many states, abortion is substantially or entirely illegal, according to even the civil positive.
Yeah, so at the best, you can have it is kind of sometimes murder, depending on the state, but you don't have caveats in that statement. You say it is murder.
I think the mistake that you're making, though, is that you're suggesting that the positive law or the civil law of the state is the ultimate law.
Oh, but and the laws, I'm sorry, also the laws in those states do not rule abortion as murder. They'll usually put a really short time frame that's like almost impossible for the woman to know that they're pregnant. And if you still have the abortion, you still are aborting that zygote that is unique human DNA, but they don't consider it murder. I think taking it to murder is the draconian position where it's like, okay, well, now we need to prosecute as if it was murder. But even Republican states don't do that.
No, that's not true, and including in liberal states. If, for instance, though New York just changed it because they wanted to liberalize abortion, but if you were to murder a pregnant woman, you would be charged with double murder. Because you've killed the mother and you've killed the child. And that's true even in liberal states.
Yeah, that is true. And I think the rationale behind that's not saying the same thing as abortion, the process of terminating a pregnancy is murder, because the reason why...
But the murderer terminates the pregnancy.
Yeah, no, the rationale is because there is no you can't predict whether or not a woman is going to bring a pregnancy to term. So if you have a pregnant woman and you kill, think of it from a legal sense, if you have a pregnant woman and I kill you, and then I kill the woman, and then the baby dies too, or whatever, I get charged double because we don't know what was going to happen. We're under the impression that they were going to bring the pregnancy to term because it wouldn't really make sense to prosecute otherwise.
But you're not, the murderer would not be charged with murdering the woman and violating her right to decide whether or not she wanted to take a pregnancy to term. What he's charged with is double murder.
The reason why they're charged with double murder is because when you kill the mother or whatever, so that's what I'm saying. Abortion is a separate concept.
This is the moment the whole pro-choice framing starts cracking, and most people watching probably miss it, because JJ keeps acting like this is just two opinions sitting side by side, totally equal, no winner. And Michael shuts that down fast. Michael said this, but at most one of us is going to be right, and he's right. You cannot say a living human in the womb both is and isn't morally significant. One of those positions is true. The other one is just wrong. There's no cozy middle where everybody gets a participation trophy. And here's what people don't realize about JJ's entire strategy. He keeps hiding behind the law. He keeps saying it's legal, therefore it's fine, therefore there's nothing left to argue about. And Michael catches it perfectly. Michael said this, The mistake that you're making is that you're suggesting that the positive law or the civil law of the state is the ultimate law. That is the trap so many people fall into. They think whatever the government writes down is automatically moral. But you have to understand, legal and right are not the same thing. History is full of things that were perfectly legal and completely wrong, and we look back now and we're horrified that anyone ever defended them. Then comes the part that genuinely got me. Michael points out that if you harm a pregnant woman and the baby dies too, you get charged twice, for 2 lives, even in the most liberal states in the country. And what does JJ do? He folds. JJ said this. Yeah, that is true. He admits it. The law itself already treats that baby as a second person, a second life. So the whole "it's just a clump of cells" script collapses the second you look at how we actually handle these cases. You don't get to count it as a life when it's convenient and erase it when it isn't.
Charged?
So, no, because abortion
this
is
an important
abortion is the ability to terminate a pregnancy, right? So if you're killing somebody, terminate a pregnancy.
Well, you're using a euphemism.
If it's an ectopic pregnancy, then the baby's already dead. But the
Hold on. How did we get to it? How did we get to the topic of ectopic pregnancy?
Because the procedure is still an abortion.
I think because you're kind of moving away from the homicide issue.
No, hold on.
Because I think because the point.
Wait, how am I moving away from it when you cut me off and then I'm trying to explain to you why what you just said was wrong? What I'm saying is an ectopic pregnancy, you would still get rid of that pregnancy via abortion. The term abortion is just the termination of a pregnancy. A lot of times it does result in it's the termination of a non-viable pregnancy in particular.
Abortion refers to the termination of a non-viable pregnancy?
Yes.
What percentage of abortions do you think are in the case of ectopic pregnancy or a threat to the life of the mother?
Oh, that's a different question.
Because what I'm saying is
the reason why I brought up
far more than
ectopic
99% of abortions are elective where the baby is viable.
Yeah, no.
So what you said
what you don't understand is the
true.
concept of viability. 80% of abortions take place in the first week, not the first week, the first trimester.
You're saying viable of living outside of the mother's womb.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That's why. So the vast majority of the time,
but the baby would still be viable in as much as the baby would continue to develop and live, just like you.
That's not. But again, you're mincing words because that's not what the term viability means.
I'm just trying to get through the euphemisms.
You're saying that it's not euphemisms. It's literal words. I don't know what euphemism. Maybe I'm.
What do you know what a euphemism means?
Yeah, I know what a euphemism means. And I'm not using one. But the thing is, I'm telling you,
a euphemism is a word to try to paper over a harsh reality with a language that would be less evocative and clear. Which is why I'm referring to a human being in the womb, and you're trying to refer to, say, a pregnancy or the product.
Hold on,
did I?
Wait, hold on. I didn't say that the pregnancy or the fetus isn't a human being. It is. But I'm telling you,
good.
I'm telling you.
But then why won't you call it a human being?
What? I said a pregnancy.
The
reason why I say because I'm describing what the term abortion refers to. It's referring to ending a pregnancy, meaning it doesn't necessarily mean killing a human being. If the human being is already dead, you'd use the same procedure.
Listen, but abortion doesn't operate on people who are already dead. Abortion. You could.
That's why I'm bringing up ectopic pregnancy.
The threat of an ectopic pregnancy is the baby is continuing to grow and threatens the life of the mother.
So if it's like develops cancer, if like the cells that are developing into the baby turn cancerous, or there's something where
the mother could develop cancer separately, which would be
but I'm saying in terms like that where the baby is dead, or you have like a miscarriage or something like that. The process by which you terminate that pregnancy is still abortion.
Now watch how JJ tries to wriggle out of it, because this is a classic move. The second he's losing the personhood point, he suddenly pivots to ectopic pregnancies and non-viable pregnancies. JJ said this: the term abortion is just the termination of a pregnancy of a non-viable pregnancy. And it sounds clinical and reasonable, right? Except that's not what almost any of this is actually about. Michael calls it instantly. Michael said this: far more than 99% of abortions are elective. And that's the part people need to sit with. The rare, tragic medical emergencies that everyone already agrees on get used as a shield for the overwhelming majority of cases that have nothing to do with them. It's a bait and switch, and it works because it makes you feel cruel for even asking about that other 99%. But here is the moment. This is the part that blows my mind. After all the dancing around language, all the careful word games, JJ slips. JJ said this: I didn't say that the pregnancy or the fetus isn't a human being. It is. Stop. Rewind that in your head. He just said it. A human being. And Michael pounces immediately because he knows exactly what just happened. Michael said this: okay, good, but then why won't you call it a human being? And that question hangs there with no good answer. Because once you've admitted it's a human being, every soft word after that is just damage control. You're not describing reality anymore. You're managing how it feels. And here's what really gets me. The entire pro-choice case in this clip depends on you not noticing that admission. The moment you catch it, the rest is just someone trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube.
Abortion is simply referring to terminating a pregnancy of an unviable fetus, which means, or a non-viable fetus, which means that in the time in which it is terminated, it cannot survive outside the mother. That's the term abortion. Now you can say abortion could be used for killing a baby or everything, but that doesn't change it doesn't change the fact that there are circumstances in which the baby's already dead, and that procedure is still called an abortion. So outlawing that procedure,
it isn't though. It is because you use the word terminate. What does the word terminate mean?
End a pregnancy.
Okay, and what is a pregnancy? What do you mean by a pregnancy?
The fetus is inside of the mother,
and
so
doing what?
So the termination of a viable.
What
do you mean?
When you say you're going to end the pregnancy, by which you mean the fetus that is inside of the mother. Mm-hmm. But
I don't mean ending the fetus that is inside the mother. I mean ending the process of pregnancy.
And what is that process? The process is the continued growth of that pregnancy.
Yes.
Which is
yes,
life.
But even if if the baby is no longer growing or something, that's still a pregnancy because it's still inside the mother. The termination of a viable pregnancy is delivery or C-section. So I don't think you understand. So the termination of a non-viable pregnancy would be when the baby cannot live outside the mother, right? And you get an abortion or whatever. That's how you terminate.
You could do that.
Or if there was,
that's not an ectopic pregnancy. That could be just any time before the baby could live outside of the mother.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're no longer just talking about ectopic pregnancy.
I was never only like trying to make the point that ectopic pregnancy is the only. I'm saying the term abortion refers to terminating a pregnancy. That can be at any stage of the pregnancy. If you terminate a non-viable pregnancy, that is abortion. That is usually what will happen in the first few weeks or the first trimester of, which is when most abortions happen. When you terminate a viable fetus, meaning a fetus that can live outside the womb, unless it's threat to the mother, which is very rare, that is a delivery. If the pregnancy ends on a viable fetus, that is usually because the mother has pushed out the baby or got a C-section.
And here's where it gets almost uncomfortable to watch, because JJ keeps building his entire case on one word and then refusing to define it. Michael pushes him on it directly. Michael said this: "You use the word terminate. What does the word terminate mean?" And instead of answering plainly, JJ does this incredible verbal tap dance. JJ said this: "I don't mean ending the fetus that is inside the mother. I mean ending the process of pregnancy." And you have to appreciate how empty that is, ending the process. As if there's some abstract floating process you can just switch off that has nothing to do with the living thing growing inside it. So Michael does the obvious thing. He asks what that process actually is. And JJ, almost by accident, hands him the honest answer. JJ said this: "The continued growth of that pregnancy, which is life." He says it himself, life. The thing being ended is life, not a process, not a concept, not a vibe, a growing human life. And that is the whole ballgame, because once you've called it a human being and called it life in the same conversation, you've already conceded every premise that matters, and you're just negotiating which gentle word makes it easier to live with. And here's what I really want you to take away from all of this. The strongest position in any debate is the one that doesn't need to keep swapping its vocabulary just to survive. Michael uses the same plain words the entire time: baby, human being, person. JJ needs a brand new dictionary every 30 seconds, and the instant he relaxes for one moment, the truth leaks right out of him. That alone tells you which side actually believes what it's saying and which side is performing for the camera. And I'll be honest with you, what makes this exchange so satisfying isn't volume or insults. Nobody is screaming here. It's just one guy calmly refusing to let the other one hide behind language, and the language giving out on him anyway. That is how you know the foundation underneath it was never solid to begin with. Strong ideas don't need camouflage. They can stand in plain words and survive. Weak ones need a fog machine. So what do you guys think of this? Leave your thoughts down in the comments. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.